pull that, then we had to, after we had got it where how we wanted it to look, then we had to ask you if it was okay. So then we had to reach out to you and say, please look this over and tell us if it's okay if we include this. So for those of you that said yes, and everybody that we asked said yes, thank you so much for doing that. I think that was a nice touch to the ebook. And so writing that was really an honor. So, and getting to share it with you, thank you. So that was it.
Thank you. Thank you for doing it and sharing all of that. It was a lot of work, and I know we've seen Lindsay kind of runs our Facebook group, the Camino for Good Café, and there's so much appreciation shared and given in our Facebook group. And if you are hiking with Camino for Good and using our app, you are able to join that Facebook group, and there's just a beautiful community that's formed there. And a lot of people who've already finished the Camino Francis are doing the Finisterre Machia route and talking about that now. So it's a really great place to be. And I did want to bring up last weekend, I hope some of you saw on our regular Camino for Good Facebook page, we did some Facebook Lives from Santiago, because if you started on March 1st, this week would have been the Feast of St. James, and you would have arrived in Santiago in time for the festivities. And one of our walkers, Margaret Caffin, introduced us to a young man who lives in Santiago, Gonzola Zola. And he gave us a live tour of all over Santiago. He showed us the fireworks that happened on the 24th, the eve of the feast. And he just did an amazing job. And he did 3 different Facebook Lives. He might even do some more later on in the week, but it was a lot to ask, but we didn't even have to ask. He offered. And so if you haven't seen those, it's worth going back and looking at. You can find them on our Camino for Good Facebook page under videos, and they're also in the feed, but you can find them directly under videos. So the purpose of this meeting was to have an open mic night. And I think most everybody knows what that is, but I'll just go ahead and describe it anyway. When you're walking the Camino, you, for real, in person, you meet a lot of people. And because it's such just an open atmosphere, but also there's this freedom that comes from knowing you're never going to see these people again. And everybody's just really open and honest, and you're there to do the work and talk the talk and walk the walk. And so we've heard through the Facebook group that people have had similar experiences, whether it was they invited people to come along with them, or doing this walk changed them in some way or helped them in some way. So we want to be for you guys to be the stars tonight and tell us about your journey. It doesn't have to be super happy or super sad. It's just whatever's real and that you're willing to share. So down at the bottom, if you move your mouse and where the chat little box is, over to the right, there is another thing that says reactions. And if you click on that, you can click on raise hand. And if you do that, then that's how I will know that you have a story that you want to tell. And Lindsay can help us get you unmuted and you can talk. So if I click on raise hand, you can see now that I have a little hand, and then Catherine's raised her hand too. So I have a story, but I'm only going to fill in if it gets quiet and you guys won't talk. So Catherine, do you want to start us off tonight, today, this morning, wherever you are?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for doing this. It's actually really good timing for me. So I actually just got back a month ago from the Camino. I didn't do a full Camino. I did 125 kilometers on the Camino Portuguese. It's my first time. I was inspired by my son, who did the full one about 4 years ago. and I found a cheap flight to Lisbon, and 2 weeks later, I was off to Portugal. And I have a funny story to tell. And then I want to talk about my Camino Blues. So as you said, Callie, you meet all sorts of people on the Camino. And first couple of days, actually, I didn't know a whole lot of people. It was very quiet. And I don't know if that was pandemic related or what, but by day 3 or 4, I was starting to meet people. And I met this guy from Bulgaria, and he didn't speak much English, and, whatever. It was lovely, right? We just had this connection. Everybody's a pilgrim. We're all walking. We all have the same destination, whatever. And I think we just stopped and had coffee together, and we were sort of hand gesturing about, where are you going to stay tonight? Kind of thing. And so we pulled out our phones and booking.com and couldn't find a single room.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, all right, fine. You don't seem like an axe murderer. It's all good. Double room, fine, let's do it. So we booked this room, and this was in Padrón, which is where the remains of St. James landed from the Holy Land, right? So we this hotel to this double room, and we get in the room, and it's 2 single beds shoved together. And I'm like, and in the meantime, I'm texting my kids. I'm like, I think this is this guy's last name. If I don't, if I disappear. Anyway, it all turned out fine. He was a really nice guy. And, we slept in this bed together, and he ended up, I call him my Camino husband, right? It was funny. I ran into him in Santiago a few days later, right? I was walking by the cathedral, and there he was. And so we hung out. It's funny. I actually had a room. So after the Camino, I was staying in kind of whatever, cheap hotels. And then when I got to Santiago, I splurged. And I was like, I have a really nice room. It's a double. It's 2 single beds shoved together. You want to stay in my room? So we had another night together. It was funny. So I have just not been the same since I got back. The first thing I noticed was anxiety. And, there's a lot going on in the world right now. And it was such a good break from that. And, I didn't realize that Camino Blues was actually a thing, right? That, you're out and your endorphin, you're walking 15 miles a day, and you're getting all this vitamin D, and you're in this beautiful countryside, and you're meeting all these people, and you're eating this wonderful food. And, but at first it was just anxiety, and it's kind of dropping into sadness 6 weeks out, or 4 weeks out, I guess. I am 4 weeks out. Yeah, so I don't know. I'm a writer. I'd be glad to write a blog post about it if that's something you're interested in. But yeah, I've just been kind of, putting it out there. I'm on another Camino group, and they said, get together with other pilgrims. That's what helps. Literally so the first night I got back, the next morning I was getting dressed to go somewhere, and I'm like, why do I have all these clothes? This is insane. Like I had, I had my hiking outfit, and I had a dress for at night. I got rid of like 90% of what I owned. Within 2 weeks, I was like, I've been thinking about moving closer to the ocean. I think I'm going to do it, talking to realtors. So just, all these major life changes. Because I think you realize that all you really need for happiness is, food and water and companionship and spirituality. That's it. And even that, so yeah, I'm kind of in a funk. So I'm glad you guys are here, and I can tell my story, my funny story about my Camino husband, and talk about my sadness. I cried a lot on the Camino, but it was beautiful, right? It was like I would see, I don't know, something beautiful, a creek or something, and I'd start crying. I'm crying all the time now. It's a little more like I miss Spain, and I don't know what I'm going to do, and I'm not going to sell my house and walk around Spain for the rest of my life. That's probably not going to happen. But anyway. So it's just good to be here with other pilgrims, and thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I think for those of us who have done it, know exactly what you're talking about. But I think I've seen even in the Facebook group for people who have done it virtually, they get sad when it ends because it's a goal, and it's something to get up for and to do every day. And I say that to people all the time. The Camino is so amazing because you sleep, you eat, you walk, you eat, you walk, you eat, you walk, you drink, you sleep. And then you get up and do it all over again the next day. And you don't have to take work calls and, all of that. But Camino Blues was a real thing for me too. I was coming home to a divorce, which wasn't fun and definitely wasn't looking forward to that. So I completely relate. And if you need anybody to talk to, I'm here. Does anybody else have a story? Yeah, Suzanne, that's so nice. You are not alone in your experience of Camino Blues, for sure. If you don't want to put the raise your hand thing, if you just want to say that you have a story in the chat, if that's easier, I'm happy for you to do that. I'm not seeing if there's any hands raised right now. So I can tell my story and maybe that will spur you guys on. And if not, then Lindsay gets to go next. So on my real Camino, I met 5 really special people and they became my Camino family. And I see that happening in the Facebook group, the Camino for Good Café, where people are connecting and becoming family. And from Australia to Canada, a lot of Canadians on there. I love it. To Americans, to Swedish people, to Germans, they're all having these heartfelt conversations about their experiences and sharing photos, and that is what it's like. And I had a Camino family. Lindsay was one of my Camino family members, but we also had Bill and Anne and Gabriel and Linda. And while I've been doing this virtual hike with you guys, the March to Santiago, I went to California and I got to visit Bill Broche from my Camino family. And we just did that walk down memory lane, and it was just amazing and beautiful. And we cried a lot, Catherine, joyful tears of, and then you think about everything that happened there, but then one of the things you learn is your Camino doesn't end. And it keeps going, and you don't really get that until you get there and you get that. And so to have my Camino experience keep going by, flying to California and visiting Bill in Napa, which was just a really hard thing to do. Napa's beautiful. Y'all should all go. And just, it was, I don't know, it was just so special. And it was nice to be virtually walking the Camino again and get to see that very, very special person in my life. I get to see Lindsay a lot because we work together and we do this Zoom thing all the time, but it was really nice to spend that time with them. And I also wanted to just throw out there that Linda, who was in our Camino family, all the really beautiful pictures that you see in the app, those are Linda's. She's a professional photographer from South Africa, Linda Eads. And she gave us all of those photos for free, gifted them to us so that you guys could all enjoy them. And we're very grateful to her. Shout out to her anytime we get a chance. And heart. Anybody want to tell a story? You don't even have to raise your hand or anything if you want to share something. Norman, you want to share something? You need to unmute.
There we go. Hi, everybody. Yeah, I'm presently on the east coast of Australia. It's about 8:30 in the morning, and with my sister, and we've sort of decided, I think, to join this next Camino. For me, I did do the real Camino, the life Camino, in 2015 from Pamplona to Santiago, and then I caught a bus out to Finisterre, but anyhow, it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. Initially, it was my daughter who saw, the movie that was made about the Camino way back with Kirk Douglas's son, I think it was. No, anyhow.
The Way.
Yeah, The Way. Yeah, I think that probably got a lot of people, interested. But my daughter said, "Dad, we're going to do this," and I said, okay. So, we'd start walking, getting fit, and anyhow, about 3 months out, she said, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to do it because she's younger and got a family and a Pilates studio and all that stuff. But anyhow, I thought, oh, well, I'm going to do it anyhow. So I went solo, but you never solo on the Camino. But because I came up from Barcelona, I thought I'm not going to go right over the Pyrenees and back again. I'll just go up to Pamplona, and I started from there. But that's about 720k out to Santiago, and took me 4 weeks. Wonderful experience. Like I said, I never felt alone, only when I wanted to be. And I met people on the first day, that I met on the last day, or some people that I met on the first day. I actually ended up in the chancellery where you sign in when you arrive and get your credentials and your certificate. But yes, a short story. We were going to go when my daughter said, oh, Dad, will you do it when I turn 50? And I said, well, let's see how that goes, because when she's 50, I'm 80. And anyhow, that's what we were going to do last year. And what happened in between. We were actually going to do the Portuguese one, because my daughter and my son and myself were going to do that. We already had our tickets, the whole works. But anyhow, that didn't happen. So that's how I plugged into the first, virtual one that you've just finished. I didn't spend a whole lot of time on it. I did enjoy getting the weekly updates and weekly come on, have a think about this. Really helpful. But life can be a bit busy for me, because I'm a busy sort of a person, but I'm trying not to be. But anyhow, right now, my sister has said, hey, would you like to do this? And I said, well, let's, tune in this morning, and pretty sure we're certainly going to register and support and do what we can. So great. I'm really happy that you guys have got the energy to get all this together. It's amazing.
We run out of energy sometimes, but yeah.
Well, like you say, in the Camino, it is, you get up in the morning, you walk, or I was walking for 5 hours, find an albergue, have a rest, have a look at the place wherever you were, and then do the same thing the next day and the next day. A couple of times I actually stayed overnight, and one place I stayed overnight, they said, oh, would you be interested in coming back as a volunteer? And I said, yeah. So, when I got to the end, I caught the bus back and stayed in that place for 2 weeks, just working in the albergue as like a receptionist, I guess you'd call me. But they treated me so well. They took me all around, showed me all, that particular part of the walk. So there's lots of opportunities, and, just a wonderful thing that I've got fond memories of it. I found the walking, that rhythm of walking and walking and praying, especially. So I did find it a particularly spiritual experience, and I'm not sure. I read quite a few books about the Camino before I went, and I read some while I was doing it and all that. So I know people do it for all sorts of reasons, but for me, it was essentially a spiritual experience. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
So I think that's about all.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I think one of the amazing things to me was figuring out that I could actually meditate while I was walking. And my friend Linda is the one who kind of showed me that and taught me that. And once that came about, we started spending every morning like that, because we pretty much stayed at the same hostels all the time. And that became something that I have taken it forward into my life, and that'll never change. I think that how peaceful and calming that can be. I mean, when I'm stressed out at work or worried about my kids or whatever, I go walk. And it just, that Camino peace finds its way back right into my heart again. So it's such a beautiful thing. Right. I think somebody had their hand up. Was that Roxanne, maybe? Did you want to say something, Roxanne? May have just been giving a thumbs up.
No, I was just giving a thumbs up, thanks.
Okay. Anybody want to jump in?
Yes,
Come
sure.
on.
My name's Brenda. I live in the American Southwest in the desert. And in the middle of COVID last year, COVID was just too common. I had to come down with cancer. So I finished, and it was early stage 1 and everything's fine at this point, but it's still an assault on one's body. And I had finished in November and was trying to get back into exercising, doing something. Luckily, as I said, I live in the American Southwest, and so the weather in the spring is beautiful, beautiful. So I saw the Facebook post on the last day of February. It was starting the next day, and I just said, "Yep, okay, here's my money." Put it on my Facebook page. Told my friends to join. One did, and we paralleled each other the entire way. She's a friend from college, and some other college friends says, "Oh, gee, maybe we should all meet sometime in Spain and do part of it together." So that's already in the works, to get a group of about 5 of us to do part of it. I didn't miss a single day. I did my 3+ miles. It never rained, and I would look at you live in a desert. Okay. I would look at these beautiful pictures that people were posting of rain and clouds and all that. And the last day, the very last day, last Sunday, when I arrived in Santiago, the monsoons came, the sky opened, and the rain came down. So I felt finally I had some experience of actually going through what a lot of people on the real Camino do. So for me, it was very personal I needed that incentive to get up there, get out there every day. All my oncologists were thrilled. They said, "Oh, that's such a cool idea." And they want to tell other people to do it, because we just need to, get a little boost to get out and get back. So feeling good and ready to do another one sometime soon.
Yeah. Thank you, Brenda. I'm so glad you're doing better.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing. I think what great motivation. And I agree. I like that heart, Tara. Tara asked a question. Did you meet your Camino family day 1 or over time? I actually had 2 Camino families. I had one in the very beginning that I spent the first 4 or 5 days with. And it was just a group of ladies, and we spanned from 21 years old to, I was the old lady at 52 at the time. And so, we had this 30-year span, but there was 5 women from all different, Sweden, Germany, New Hampshire, Tennessee. I'm forgetting somebody. Anyway, and we walked together, we laughed, we cried, we told really special, shared very special things with each other. But when I arrived in Pamplona, they had to keep going, and I had planned on staying an extra day, which I highly recommend. Not because you lose your family, but because Pamplona is amazing. And so the night before I arrived in Pamplona, my last night with them, I met my new Camino family, Camino family to come. And I met Linda, Bill, Gabriel, and Anne that night. And then we walked, I can't remember if it was 1 or 2 days, and got to Puente Lorena, and there sat Lindsay when we walked into the restaurant. And I just said, "Hey, are you a pilgrim?" He was sitting by himself, and I was like, "We're having dinner if you want to join us." And that kind of filled out our family. And we didn't stay together all the time. We would sometimes, I'd want to walk by myself one day or whatever, but we would usually see each other in the evening. And we had this thing, like when you're going into a town, especially with lunch, it was like first bar on the right, and that's where we'd find each other. So there was a system. But it was amazing. And I needed every one of them for a different reason, and they needed me, you know, and it was beautiful. I wouldn't change a single minute of all of that. And then somebody also asked, sorry, y'all are having to hear me talk so much. Can you tell us more about the virtual Camino, and can one start anytime? Yeah, you can start at any time. We do the challenges. We did the Walk for Good challenge in January, and the March to Santiago, March 1st. We're doing the Journey to Santiago, August 1st. This Sunday we launch. And it's really just, it's a 5-month challenge. And it's really good because on the real Camino, you have a beginning and you have an end. And usually you know about how many days it's going to take. You've got a plane ticket home, and so it has to take so many days. And so we just kind of give everybody an opportunity to have that starting point. It's the same route for everybody, whether you start on August 1st or not. And you can even restart and do the route again for the same cost. And we do have a monthly fee of $12 a month, which at 5 months, which is about what it would take you at 3 miles a day, equals the $60 price. So that's kind of how we did that. And then, so if anybody wants to start on August 1st, this Sunday, we hope you'll join us and sign up. And we are, instead of doing the weekly emails on this challenge, we're doing the ebook, so that you will have the ebook and then you can follow along in there. And it's beautiful work by Susan and Shay, and so inspiring. And oh, Norman's got to go. Buen Camino, Norman. Does anybody else have a story that they'd like to share? I'm trying to kind of keep my eyes open. Lindsay, can I call on you?
Yeah. So, I mean, one of my problems is that I've got so many stories that I could tell that it's hard to pick. It's hard to pick one. I guess, I mean, firstly, I'd like to talk about the Camino Blues, because that's been brought up by Brenda. And it is very real. And for me, when I came back from the Camino, it's like it was such a moving experience for me that none of the life that I came back to made sense. And so it was a matter of continually trying to find a way for my experience, which I thought while I was walking the Camino that this is real life, and that back home is the false life, or the pretend life, or whatever. And so it was trying to, my challenge was to try and bring that what I perceived was real life back into my daily life. And to a large extent, that's been able to happen, or has been enabled by joining Kelly and Susan and Bill and Shay and Veronica and Fabio on this journey. So that brings me to the next part of my story, which is the development of this. When we first got together, we wanted to make it as genuine an experience as possible, given the limitations of electronics and whatever. And our focus was to raise money for the albergos who were suffering because of the lack. So our focus was how can we raise money for the albergos? And then we got caught up in designing, in marketing, and all the rest of it. It wasn't really until we started the Camino for Good Café, the Facebook group, and it really wasn't until the March to Santiago, when people started to sign up for the Facebook group, that. And I say this, for the first 2 weeks, I think I had tears welling up in the back of my eyes for the first 2 weeks. And the reason for that was that I realised that all the work that we'd put in was making it a genuine experience, or a genuine enough experience for people all over the world that couldn't get to Santiago or couldn't get to the Camino for exactly the same reasons that I couldn't get there. And I realised that we'd sort of, even though we'd designed all these things into the app to try and make it as genuine as possible, it wasn't until those pennies started to drop that that it became real for me. And out of that, I feel like I've made a lot of friends through the Facebook group, and people, because it's a private group and people feel comfortable sharing their stories exactly the same way as it happens on the Camino. It's, you know, it is that I've brought that that Camino spirit, or the Camino spirit that I touched on when I was on the Camino. I feel like I've been able to live that in my life now, and that has its ups and downs. Sometimes it's great, and sometimes it's not so great, and sometimes I just want to curl up in a ball in Spain somewhere. But anyway, that's what it is for me, and it continues to be. And we'll see what happens.
I think one other thing I would love for you to talk about is kind of what this journey, literal physical journey that you've been on, like because I mean, with COVID in Australia, everything's very strict, and you've moved recently,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. So my virtual, I was due to fly out on in 2020. I was due to fly out in April to Spain. It was the day after my son's wedding. I was living in Tasmania. He was in Perth. I was due to fly over to Perth, say mid-April, you know, just before the wedding. I was only going to be in Perth for about 3 days. But as things started to shut down and states were closing their borders, I had to make a decision within a day, I had to pack up and leave Tasmania to go to Perth to be there for my son's wedding. So I arrived about 2 weeks or 3 weeks before the wedding, in fact. Started to walk on the Bibbulmun track as a way of getting out of his hair. And then the Bibbulmun track closed down. So the Bibbulmun track's a walking track in Western Australia. So he had to come and rescue me because they're basically, they had fines if you crossed regional borders. So he had to come and rescue me, take me back to Perth. And I ended up sleeping in his in-laws' backyard in a tent for 2 months. And then it was
Wow.
there was predicted to be it was only a $200 Kmart tent. It was quite comfortable, but there was a cyclone or whatever they call them over in Western Australia predicted. And so I decided to pack up my tent and move into a hostel to avoid because I didn't want to be blown away. It had already happened once and it wasn't a comfortable experience. So then I moved into a hostel, and which was sort of a bit of a halfway house. It was right in the centre of Perth, but there were, you know, it was all okay, but there were incidences that I would rather have not have been part of, but that's part of life experience. And I figured if I was in Spain, I'd be staying in hostels. So I may as well stay in a hostel in Perth anyway. But after about 6 months, all up in Perth, I started to get homesick. I'm not homesick for Tasmania particularly, but I wanted to get back there and start working again and just sort of get some semblance of life. So then I just waited for the Tasmanian borders to open. And that was, I think they opened, it must have been late October. So as soon as they opened, but I had this horrible experience in Adelaide. So getting from Perth to I was going to land in Launceston. Was I going to land in Launceston?
All right.
I was going to land in Hobart. Sorry, it might take him too long. So I was going to land in Hobart, but so anyway, I get to Adelaide and I had a 2 hour. It was about 2 hours and 15 minutes between flights, so I couldn't check in. I couldn't put my bag straight away. So I thought I'll go and do a bit of work. So I set my alarm for, give me an hour. So I set my alarm on my phone. Anyway, long story short, I had three places where I had the time shown, but there's a time difference between Western Australia and Adelaide. And my alarm was, anyway, long story, I missed my flight I missed my flight. Anyway, I hate this story. But anyway, I missed my flight, had to stay in Adelaide for a couple of days. That was all right. Cost me about $500 extra. I get to, I arrive home, but then someone in Adelaide had tested positive and they were, anyway, I missed all that. So then.
Hey, Lindsay.
Sorry.
Okay. Yvonne asked a question. So she said she's reminding you that you were going to talk about the Camino Blues. Did you have anything you wanted to say about that?
Look, I think the Camino Blues for me were about, I came back and I think I suffered from, I mean, I'd have to say it felt like depression, but I knew that it was related to I had to make some changes in my life, and I ended up downsizing considerably, changing my expectations about what life was. And every day it was sort of like a journey to that, to that outcome, I guess. The only way I could deal with the only way I could start to move forward was to see that the life I had on the Camino, of not needing much, as Catherine said, all you need is something to eat, and just the clothes you're wearing basically and can carry. And I suppose that's what I've set out to do as life's progressed. And that's the way I deal with that's the way I've sort of dealt with the Camino Blues, really. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So we have two people who would like to say something. Tara said she's raising her hand to talk about Camino Blues. Go for it, Tara. Oops.
Yep, sorry, that was me. I had to unmute. Sorry. Yeah, I actually got the Camino Blues pretty severely when I got back because I walked twice, once in 2018 solo, and I'm sorry, I'm Tara Marlowe. I'm in Tasmania. I walked it solo in 2018 and then again in 2019 with my husband, Richard. And when I got back from 2018, I felt completely lost. And my husband and I were actually traveling full time at that stage. So we didn't even have a home to come home to. We were house sitting around the world. So coming back, I didn't even have that sense of home. It was just, it seemed like it was continuing, but I was really missing my Camino family, and I just felt lost for a long time. And I think that's what prompted me to go, to turn to Rich and say, come on, we're going back, and I had actually told him in 2018, I didn't want him to walk the Camino with me. I wanted to do it by myself. And I'm really glad that I did. But even after the 2019 Camino, we got back and we
thankfully we decided, yes, we really do need a home base, and came back and settled in Tasmania. But I still had that lost feeling when I got back. And I looked around Tasmania to see if there was a Camino group, and there was kind of one, but not really. And so I created one, and that's where I met Lindsay. And I have, there are now 2 Camino groups in Tasmania. One's actually on the south end of the state and one's on the north end. And I'm probably closer to the southern group, only because I see them more often than the northern side. But if it wasn't for that, I would have, to be able to share my stories and talk about, everybody gets out their maps and their photos and talks about their Camino Blues and all of that. And then, when that kind of, that's only every other month, then this group's around. So, this has kind of filled a lot of that gap, just to hear and see, and, other people experiencing the same things as me. Because really, when I got back and I wanted to talk about my Camino to my friends and family who have never done it, nobody cared. Nobody wanted to hear the stories. And, I truly think that it's only people who have done it before or are interested in it that really want to hear what that experience is like. So, yeah, that was my story.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it is such a blessing to be able to talk to other pilgrims.
Mhm.
Yeah, whether it's virtual or whether it was, the physical journey there, it really does help to talk. And I think through the virtual experience, you can see that and get and some insight into what it's like
Mhm.
when you really go. Thank you for that. Suzanne, I see you have your hand raised.
Hi, I'm Susanna. I live on Vancouver Island, but I grew up in Denmark. So I've been with my daughter in 2008. We walked from Leon, which is a difficult thing to do with your teenager,
I bet.
into Santiago, out to Finisterre, and then out to A Corona. And then 2 years later, I went with a dear girlfriend of mine from Vancouver Island. And almost 3 years ago, other friends from Vancouver Island. But 2 years ago, which is the story I want to share, I was having a horrible time. I was in Denmark. I was taking care of my very belligerent dying grandmother. And my daughter was in treatment, and it was a rough day. And I was at the airport trying to get home to Canada, and nothing was going right. So I walked out the door of Copenhagen Airport and turned left. And I walked not 500 meters when I came across the Camino signs. And I felt so centered, like it was all going to be okay. And then I just walked for several hours in that direction. I just kept following the signs and then turned around when I knew it was time to get back to my flight. But it was the most wonderful experience of how, at a time we don't expect to be on a Camino, you find yourself just walking. And I'm so grateful to this group because I've met all of you, and I've got to meet Judy and Dave in person, and Marcia up in Coombs. So buen camino, everyone.
Buen Camino. Thank you.
And my daughter, who was having a rough time on that initial Camino, looks back and says it was probably the best thing we ever did, and she would go back and do it again. So,
I would love to
hopefully-
do that with my girls.
Yeah, it's an amazing experience. Yeah. So bye.
I'm wondering if any of you would be willing to let's see, make sure there's if anybody's interested in talking about your experience in the Camino for Good Cafe and the friendships that you formed there. I know I feel like Judy and David have really been instrumental in staying in touch with people and being very consistent in posting. And I don't know if any of you would be comfortable talking about that. Judy and David are discussing whether I don't want to put them on the spot, but I think, and Janine, did you say that you're walking the Finisterre Machia now? Was it you and Judy? You said you and Judy were? Yeah.
Oh, I think we're on. Are we on?
Yes, you are on. Thanks for.
We're thinking of, well, we're thinking of going in September. to Bilbao. It takes 2 days to get there, of course. But then we would walk to Santiago. So we figured we should be able to do that in 41 days.
41. That's the Norte?
That's our style.
I mean, this is what
Yeah.
we were going to do last spring.
Yeah.
And of course, COVID came along, so we had to cancel our reservation, we had some
Yeah.
reservations and flights and things.
Yeah.
So we had to cancel all that. But it was just wonderful that Camino for Good came along just when we needed it, because we started on the 15th of January
Yeah.
and walked to Santiago twice.
You did.
Or I did it twice. Dave did it once.
I did it once.
And now I'm on my way to Finisterre. But it's really filled in the gap very nicely. We just really enjoy walking. And one thing I wanted to say is I used to walk with a hiking group. And of course, when COVID came along, we weren't walking together anymore. Well, now that we can walk together, because now it's safer in Canada to get together with groups, I don't want to, because now hiking at home is my alone time, my meditation time, when I can listen to Dan Mullen's interviews or just contemplate the subject for the week. I mean, it's been just great just to walk alone or with one other person, but no longer am I in a group, because that's just not what I want when I'm hiking. But yeah, we're really looking forward to getting back to the real Camino. But in the meantime, this has been great. And also the Camino for Good Café, where we have met a lot of people, and it's just wonderful to watch, to see where they're walking and their experiences. Another thing too, while we're sharing in the Camino for Good Café, I've kept a journal so that I think that our next Camino will be quite different for me, in that it will probably be much more of an inner journey. I know the times that we walked the Camino before, I could say it was more of a long distance walk. We were tourists, maybe more than we were pilgrims. But I'd say now there's going to be much more substance to it on our next Camino.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
I wasn't aware of all this.
well, yeah.
Well, is it going to happen? That's a big question right now with Canada's going up, the US is going up in COVID, Spain is really high, England is doing better, France is bad. I don't know. It looks at this point that maybe we have to postpone it to spring again.
Yeah, my friend Bill just did. Yeah. Did you want to say something, Janine?
We've just had a really great time walking with Judy and David and everyone in our Camino group. It's been a lifesaver. It's been really fun. And sorry, my little granddaughter's just run outside with my husband, so she's being just wrangled. She's okay. But it's been so nice. And like what Judy said, I get up early and I walk early because I work full time, and so I do a 10K walk before I start work, and it's just such a beautiful time of the day to be up, and I really feel sorry for people sleeping in. You get up and this morning the moon was still up and it's dark, and there's this level of comfort that you feel in your own area that probably I wouldn't have felt before walking in the dark by myself. But like Judy said, it's so meditative, and I like it because people say to me, oh, you must think about lots of things. And I say often I don't think about anything. It's just this, I've finished a 10K walk and I think, oh, what did I think about? I don't even know, but it's just this beautiful process, and things come into your mind and they go out of your mind, and you can sort of settle your day, and it's just really, really lovely. And the Camino for Good has just been so beneficial. Like, we were supposed to go last year as well, and do a walk with my husband and our 2 kids and their partner, and we put it off, and we thought we'd do it this year, and I don't think it'll be till 2023, but just having that connection with people of like-mindedness, like Tara was saying, and everyone says, you talk to your friends about it, but they start to vague out and think they have no idea what you're talking about. And it's like anything in life, I suppose. You don't know what you can't experience. You don't know what the experience is like until you experienced it yourself. And for me, I think I'm a nurse, so the benefits of walking is just so great, and I do try and encourage all my parents to walk, to think through things. It's and certainly some I've said, they all know that I'm crazy, and I often walk around with my backpack on, and they see me early in the mornings, and they see that benefit, and it is such a wonderful community of walkers. So thanks, guys. And it was really nice. I caught up with Lindsay in Sydney, and Judy and I are planning to be hospitaleros, maybe 2023. Yeah. So thanks.
Thank you. I saw Yvonne saying she didn't think they'll be able to do it from Australia until next year. Did you have something you wanted to talk about, Yvonne? Or anything you wanted us to talk about? I saw your comment and I was like, yeah, I know. I think today was hopefully about, letting anybody have their say. And usually when we have these cafes, we have our speakers and they do all the talking. So we were glad to hear from you guys and, to kind of wrap up the March to Santiago and kick off the journey to Santiago. Now Roxanne has her hand up. Do you want to say anything, Roxanne? Oh, you're muted.
Hi, I just wanted to say that it's great listening to everyone. The virtual Camino to me is going to be it. I will never do the live Camino, and I've never done it, but to experience as much as I possibly can and do the best I can virtually has been a wonderful experience. I do go on the cafe. I watch what other people are doing. I love seeing all the pictures everyone's posts. I'm actually walking with a girlfriend that lives 1,600 kilometers from me. And so we share photos back and forth as to what we're going. But yeah, someone mentioned, I think it was Lindsay that said he knew it was working. I just want to confirm that it is working. There's probably lots of people like me that are never going to be able to do the live one. So this is the best thing for us. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Roxanne. It warms all of our hearts to hear that, because, it was like the best, like, it's like, what do we do? Like, people aren't going to get to walk it. And this was the best we could do. So, we're proud of what we've done, but more than anything, we feel very blessed that we've gotten to get to know, some of you, and there's over 4,000 people hiking it. And so it's great to have this connection. I will encourage you to, if you can, join our Facebook group, but there's a lot of other locally focused Camino groups out there. And there's some virtually focused Facebook groups out there too. There's the Camino Forum that Ivar from Santiago runs, and there's some other places to get active and plugged in and learn more if you are thinking about going. And we're always here if you have any questions or need anything. I mean, I could talk about the Camino all day long. Lindsay, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I was just going to say the thing about people sharing their local photos, like things they've taken on their walk, has been really, really helpful for me and for everyone else, I think, to see parts of the world we've never seen before. Like, I think Suzanne posted a photo of seals once, and I was absolutely amazed at, she just has to go for a walk and there's seals there. But then for me, posting photos of kangaroos, which are, happen all over the place, is like commonplace. But for other people, it's like they're seeing something that they've never even thought of before, So it's just, in a way, it's a bit of a great leveler to realise that there's so much intrigue in the world, and that where I live is just as exciting to someone else as where they take for granted in their own neighbourhood.
Right.
So that's something unexpected for me. I didn't think that we were going to experience that, but that's been great.
Yeah, thank you. John, did you want to say something? We'll have to get you to unmute though. Yvonne says we never tire of seeing the kangaroos.
Yeah, there's John. This is chiming in from near Seattle, Washington. And first of all, I want to thank you all for your leadership and the creativity and willing to try something like this. That's inspiring for the rest of us. I think just get out of our comfort zone and try. I was a pilgrim walking, alone, and the solitude was just remarkable. And I just look forward to that time, and seeing you that I do not know, but I have just a growing sense of a global community of where we are all pilgrims on the journey. And if we could all do this around the world, maybe better yet, have something to eat along the way. That I'm getting hungry right now. So thanks for letting us chime in on this open mic time. And wanted to say thanks to Susan for those weekly emails. I've saved those because those are questions that are really timeless. And thanks for that effort.
She did a beautiful job. I'll tell her you said that. She had to leave early today. Somebody asked, when did you walk your Camino, John?
I began March 1st, and 122 days later, I guess I finished a bit early, but that gave me a chance to go back and reflect. And I enjoyed posting some of my photos, and thanks, Lindsay, for your comments. The regular discipline of that has been really helpful. And so my blues are that I don't get out and do it. And now I'm feeling more sedentary. So now I'm inspired again.
There is a reset button.
Yes.
Hit that reset button and start again.
All right.
Well, it's been a little over an hour. Thank you guys for joining us. Lindsay and I and Susan and Shay and Bill, Fabio and Veronica, our email addresses are easy. It's kelly@caminoforgood.com and lindsay@caminoforgood.com. If you need anything, let us know. We have a great tech team that's there to help if you have any problems. And it's so good to see your faces and hear your stories, and we appreciate it. And we'll let you know when the next cafe is. Thank you, everybody. Buen Camino. Can't forget to say that. All right. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah,
Buen
thanks.
Camino.
Buen
Buen
Camino.
Camino.